share my screen. Can't tap entire screen. So tell me, can you see my screen? Probably not yet. Yep. Now?
Yep. I see it.
Yep.
Yep, it's good.
Mika?
Yep, I see it.
Yep, perfect. Yeah, so here quite a few social medias from us. On our YouTube channel, you can find a lot of videos about JavaScript and about basic syntax and like, yeah. And because also we run in a bootcamp here in London, we're publishing all lessons on our YouTube channel. So you basically can view the whole bootcamp from very first lesson to the very last lesson online on our YouTube channel. Yeah, so feel free if you want to, because this is a full stack bootcamp that we are running here. Okay, so Node.js and Express. You might saw it many times, and I found that it becomes more and more popular in the industry. So if you're looking for a web development position and you want to be a full stack developer, people ask more about Node.js. I know that because I used to work as an instructor in Flatiron bootcamp, and they are teaching Ruby, and I found that it is popular, still popular, because we have a lot of legacy platforms. But if you are looking to work on some new projects, build some from scratch platforms, or you want to work for startups, etc., people normally use, but like I would say the main part of businesses use Node.js. And the reason behind that is that you can, with Node.js, you can work with Firebase and Google Clouds, because Google Clouds support only Node.js. So, for example, AWS, they support different languages like Python, Node.js, and others, but Google doesn't. So people normally pick Node.js so they can move their platforms from Google Clouds to AWS, or to basically migrate from one to another without rebuilding everything. That is why Node becomes more and more popular. So Node.js is JavaScript. So, but you just run it not in a browser. So if you have just JavaScript code and you run it in terminal, basically this is Node. So frankly speaking, it's Node because you're running in terminal. So I want to create, command line. Terminal. I want to create desktop. I will create just a folder for our lesson. Node. Okay, so here I have just an empty folder. I will create a terminal here so we can work from here. Again, just want to remind you that if you have any question, just ask without waiting. Yeah, so I want to create an index.js, just basically JavaScript, right? And if I declare a variable, I don't know, pet equals cat, and I want to console log it, so basically print it to see what is the value of that variable. I can open that in the browser. So if I create index.html, so it's not relative to Node, I just want to show you the difference. And script, here we have src index.js. So now index.html. So on load, I got my console log and I have my cat here, right? So this is JavaScript. But basically, if you do node and just index.js, so you run your file in the terminal, you can say that you're writing Node without HTML. So basically, you don't need to have HTML. You just write in Node. So the beauty of of Node.js, this is JavaScript. So you basically just write in more JavaScript, and that is why people prefer now to work with Node, because by learning JavaScript, you learn in Node.js. So that is why it's more flexible for developers. Yeah, so pros, it is fast, it is lightweight, it's just a language. And same language as a front end, this is what I just said. It's very flexible for you it's very easy for you to become a full stack developer. So cons is same but different, means the same as JavaScript but a bit different. Because Node.js by itself, it has a few features, but normally when you start working with Node.js, you start using a lot of libraries, a lot of packages, and as Lester mentioned, the NPM Node Package Manager, you're basically installing many different packages for you to build your application if you want to work with something. And Express is one of these packages. And we will install it today and try to do something with it. So basically, every time you want to add something to your project, some extra functionality or extra library, you use require. And that will look like this. So you, for example, you want to have fs. You have require fs. So, and now you can use the library fs, which is file system, and we will talk about that today a bit. But now you can use it. I'll show you how we will do that, but this is how you include any package. So Node.js, you basically require Node.js modules, like a piece of someone's code. And here we have, so modules are just files. This is just a regular code, nothing else. Somebody wrote it for you, and you can use it. Yeah, so require loads the content from the module. So basically, you're reading this file. This is the way how you will read the file, the other's file with JavaScript, with some functionality that you can that you want to use on your platform for your application. And require take pass or the package name. So that means that if you use some from npm, if you use the package from npm, you install the npm package, and then you just put a name like Express, for example, Express, and you include in the Express, but you need to install it first. Or if you have internal application, some internal functionality, internal module, you can just hard code to like mylib and have some lib.js, for example. So it takes the path or the name, depends on where this module comes from. So you can include it to your project, some extra functionality again. So, yeah, to use npm, you can use npm or yarn to install extra modules. So, for example, we have Lodash here, and Lodash is again the beauty of JavaScript, that you can use this Lodash package on the front end and on the back end, because this is just a JavaScript package. And you need to install it from npm. Or for example, fs, which is file system, which gives you ability to work with files. We will talk about that in a second. This is a built-in Node.js module, extra module, so you can use it. And yeah, so we will, about the file system. So file system allows you to create, read, write, or delete files from on your laptop, on your machine, or on the server. So it doesn't matter. So basically, you're working with files directly. And that can be synchronous or asynchronous. And here I have a basic example. So you just require FS file system module to your project, to your file, to your index.js, for example, and then you can read some file. So let's actually test it. So I'll create some, I don't know, names.txt, and here I will have some Tom, Sam, me. Just bunch of names. So if I'm including file system to my project, so I can get my data from this file. So names, let's call it names, for example, and here we'll have fs read sync, and we will put the path to the file, which is names.txt, and the UTF, because this is just a text. And let's console log it. Names. So basically I'm reading the file, whatever I have inside, and storing this in the variable names. And now I can just console log to see what I have there. So let's try. Node, index, scroll name, error, var, beautiful, f. Good start, right? Must be of type number, receive the string. Is it file read sync? Sorry. File read sync. Did I miss something? Read file sync. No, definitely. Crazy. That should be fine. So we have a. That's really odd. Okay, let me try. So we have fd argument. fs. What's going on? Let's reload, rerun. Still the same. How we can stuck on some simple thing?
I think on the example, it's a read file instead of a read sync. I'm not sure if I saw that right.
Read file sync, right? Thank you. I'm blind. You're right. Thank you. UTF-8. Let's rerun. Yes, and we can get the text from the file, so we can read it, right? Or, for example, we have read file sync, and we can, for example, write something to the file. And you might ask me, like, where I'm taking all this stuff. So if you Google for FS, you will get Node. You can go to Node documentation, and it has file system. And basically here you have all methods that are available for you to use and work with files. Huge list. And if you go to write file sync, here's an example. So you put the file, basically your address, and the data that you want to push. So let's do something. So we have fs write file sync, and we have the same names .txt, and for example I want to put something, my new string, and UTF, same thing. So now if I try const new string, I will do the same. So I will read my file again, and I'll try to console log it and see the new value, right? So theoretically we don't need to do this, because we can go to the file and see what do we have there? So now we have Tom, Sam, and Mimi. If I run my code, I have my new string. So I just rewrote the file, right? So I took my file and just put a new data inside.
So how would we do it if we just wanted to add to the file instead
Good
of
question.
deleting?
Yes, good
Rewriting.
question.
Overwriting, sorry.
Yeah, so how we do that? We want to take, basically we have our names, so let's put back our names, right? We have the names. So now I want to take my, because its name's constant, I need to change it to let because I want to modify it now. So what I will do just names plus equal, because I want to concatenate with a new string. So I want to take everything that I have plus something new. So I will basically copy put it here. And now I put my names back, right? Or like const new string, let's say str. That will be names plus my new string. So I will take the old value and will add something that I want to add to that file. And I want to store it here, right? So I want to store in my file old names plus new string. So let's try that again. So I want to show you again. So we have Tom, Sam, and Mimi. If I run my code, now I have Tom, Sam, and Mimi and my new string. Right? So I can work with files. And again, here we have write file sync, we have read file, write file, delete, etc. Quite a few methods. And yeah, so we can actually, the next stop is go to code editor. So we can go, I can show you how to delete files. So let's quickly search for it, delete. I believe that should be remove. Remove. I don't use it every day. Copy file sync, rm. So here, what do we have? Essentially removes files, yeah. So rm sync, right? And for example, so we have a file. Let me just remove or comment it out for a sec. So we have our text, our file, but if I call fs, remove our rm, so remove file sync, and just give the address, which in our case names.txt, and I will call my function. What did I miss? rm sync. Is it? I'm pretty sure that should be file sync. Synchronously remove files or directories, returns undefined. Okay, maybe rm sync. Let's try again. Definitely not. fs rm sync pass. This is the odd feeling when you read documentation and the documentation doesn't work. Okay, we have fs, rm, sync, and the pass. Looks good for me. Let me check, what do they have? Oh, they have a link as well. Asynchronously removes a file or symbolic links. Let's try. So why saying, so we have unlink. Oh yeah, unlink sync, sorry. Sync. That might be it. Yeah. See, we just lost our file. And the same, so we can read, we can modify it, we can write, we can delete, and you might guess we have create. we should have created file. Is it just right? Maybe it's just right. Yeah, I think this is just right. So if you have just right and the file do not exist, that should create you that file. So let's try. We don't have a file. I'm passing my new file as a string inside it. So if I run our Node.js, yeah, it just created a new file for us and stored my new file. Yeah.
So this library, you can pretty much modify, create, delete any given file in the system, like in your local disk drive for any computer, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
so pretty powerful.
Yeah, so basically when you build in the backend and you're hosting your website, you're basically hosting on someone's computer, right? It's not laptop, it's a computer. And this is the same, so you basically manually, and normally they have like a Linux system. It's the most popular. Somebody use still Windows, but yeah, it just Linux is the most popular one. And you just removing files, creating files. You can interact with files. You can upload images, for example. When you click upload on the front end as a user, like upload the avatar when you create some account in the social media, right? And uploading the file, it convert to the string, upload the file, and you receive it on the back end, and you can create a file from the image and store it and create. Basically, you can create the image. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
So, sorry, let me just ask, just to clarify.
Yeah.
I know that you said that most people do have Linux, but this will work if somebody is using Windows without issues as well, correct?
Yeah. Of course. I'm saying not people. Sorry, I might confuse you. Not people, but servers.
Mm-hmm.
So the platforms where you're hosting your website or the platform or your data, they normally use Linux. But yeah, it still will work. It's just Node.js.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So so this is file system, and why we are starting with file system, because we will move to endpoints and we want to create to-do list today, and we will work with it. Any other questions before we move to Express?
I have a couple questions.
Yep.
So, sorry, so such a beginner question, but so it also works with Unix, I assume?
Yeah, of course, yes.
Okay, and in your terminal, you are just you're just CDing into the index.js directory. You're in that directory?
To the Node directory. So I have a Node folder.
Oh, right. Node. Okay, right. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, because so I basically my root folder, because I use Mac, and my root folder is this. So because I created on my desktop, I created folder Node. So I just need to navigate to desktop Node, and here I am.
So I think won't it be nice that we can start with? I mean, I know maybe most of the questions will get answered if I also use Mac, but everybody can know that Node can be installed on Windows, Mac, or anything else, and then once it's globally installed, then any of these will gonna work.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, good point. Because before you start with Node, you need to go to Node.js and download it. This is very good point.
I'm doing something.
Sorry?
Yeah, you have to download Node.js, and then get bash is also really helpful if you have Windows as well. This is I ran into that issue before. Definitely download Node.js, download get bash, and then your life will be happy.
Yep. This is a very good point. So yeah, just go to Node.js and install it. So, and npm is a part of Node.js. So when you install Node.js, you'll get npm on your laptop, so you can install extra packages when you need it. Yep. Good. Thank you. Yeah. So let's go to the Express. So Node.js basically gives you ability to create endpoints and communicate between front end from the client, like a browser, to your server, and work with databases, work with files, etc. But it is horrible, to be honest, to work just with Node.js and to build your endpoints. It is so it has complicated syntax, I would say, because Node.js makes it very nice. Express makes everything very nice, and you'll see how in few lines of code we can create endpoints and get data from the server and send data to the server. So yeah, that is why this is like a Express. On the Express website you can find that they're saying that this is fast, unopinionated, minimalist web framework for Node.js, and it is true. Like, there is I would say no alternatives for Express for Node.js. So everybody's using Express if you're working with Node.js. To be honest, I've never heard that somebody used just Node.js without Express. This is how it's popular. So, and we will talk about APIs. So APIs is just application programming interface. So this is the way how you will communicate with something else. This is you have every single application, even your TV at home, right? And you have a remote. This is kind of the API, and you read manuals to understand how to work with that API, how to communicate with your TV through remote control. And everything is basically everything has API, and for us is the way how you will communicate between front end and the back end. And one of the most popular APIs is REST API, which stands for Representational State Transfer API. So that means that you sending data as a string, as a JSON, basically stringified JSON object, and you parsing it and doing something. So it represents the state on the front end or on the back end. So you're taking some data, like a snapshot of that data, sending to the front end, to your client, and on the front end side, you just parsing this data, manipulate whatever you want, put it back, and basically send another updated snapshot to your backend and do the same on that side. So this is how it works with REST. And you might find you can see a lot many times around the internet, around maybe job descriptions, the word CRUD, which stands for create, read, update, and destroy. So when you see somebody is writing like I needed to build a CRUD application or whatever, you understand that application should create, read, update, or destroy data. All four, right? Yes. So for when you're working with API, you have a few methods, and we have get method to read data, to get data. We have post method, which is to create new data. We have patch, which will just change the existing data. So if you have, I don't know, the object, your user with first name, last name, age, email, password, etc., you don't need to replace the whole user when you want to change just a name. You can patch this user and modify only the first name or the last name or whatever. So you don't need to modify the whole object, because sometimes it can be big and you don't want to replace and waste resources for that. And delete. Delete is basically where you removing your data. So we have some naming convention for endpoints. And for example, to-dos will represent the collection, a lot of things of one type. So you just call it, I don't know, fruits or users or whatever, so plural here. That means that you will get the collection of one type of data. If you add something in the end, that means that you're getting one item, and normally this is like ID, because you get in the to-do by ID or by something else. By name, you can get user by name, whatever, but that represents the one thing. And for example, to-do's new, that means that you want to create something, create a new item in that collection, in your database. This is just a naming convention. You can call it whatever you want, but for readability, people use such things. Yes. So yeah, for example, we have get method for to-dos to get all to-dos. We have get method for one to-do. We have get methods for new, which is old. Post method to-dos to create a new to-do. Patch so you need to get your to-dos and get the specific to-do, right? So you're saying I want to patch specific to-do. And delete, again, you just doing to-dos and the ID or the way you're selecting, like a name or whatever. So you're selecting your some specific element. And here we have the very basic setup for your for the Express application. So you need to have Express. Then you just create an instance. So you call the Express because basically it returns the require Express, returns you a function. So you just call this function, and whatever this function returns, you store into app. And this function returns you an object with different methods. And we will start build something now, but here you just you have like property on your Express on the app. You have the property use to add some middlewares. So between basically front end and back end, you will have something that will handle data in specific way. And that means here, for example, we're saying that I want whatever data comes from the front end, I want to parse it as a JSON, as an actual data, not the string. So that is why we're passing this middleware with use to parse all the data. And I will show you in a second. And to instantiate, to start your actual server, you just have app.listen, and you specify the port, where do you want to listen your backend, your server, and you can put some callback function to say something, or you might not. So I'm putting just a console log that listening on port 3000. So let's do that. Let's create the very first server.
What is port 3000?
Right, so thank you. Yeah, so port means that you can run your server on some specific, you can access to your server when you run in your server on some specific port. So this is internal ports where it's like a server. It's like I would say like a links for you, for anyone, like I'm here, right? If you go to google.com, it will have own API, IP, sorry, own IP, and this is like an address, right? And port is basically the same. So you're saying on what port, what address, you will have it. So that will be localhost, but you want to specify which port because you have a lot of them. You can create on any port, on 4000, 3100, whatever. To be honest,
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, okay. So is using 3000 for your local
So you can use any other number. It's just the most popular. When you start Googling for Node.js and some application and some example, you'll see that many times because this is like a default port that people use to run their applications.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll see how we can reach it in a second. So I have just index.js, and I need to instantiate because I want to have Express, and Express is a package from npm. So I need to init npm environment in my folder. And so when you start npm init, it will ask you a few basic questions like a name of the project, some basics, very basic things. But to avoid all this yes, I just put flag -y, and that means that you answering to all your questions yes. And now it just generated package.json file for us. And we have some basic information there. So the name of the project is Node. It took our folder name, version, description, main, so the main file that we will use, etc. And this package.json is like a document for your application and for packages that you want to add to your application and add some extra settings. And if you want to use Express, I need to do npm Install Express. So I'm installing the Express to my project, and we, as you can see, now we got a new field, dependencies, and we have Express as a dependency. Okay, so now I can include and use my Express in my project. So I can do const Express require Express, right? So as we said on the beginning of of today, we said that you can use package name to get the to get that package, because we're installing through npm, and now we just use the package name which we have here, Express. So we have our Express, beautiful. Next step is to create an instance of our application. I have a very smart autocomplete, by the way. You can see that I start typing app, and it already suggesting me what should be next. This is actually a funny one. If you're curious about that, I use Node VS Code, and we have the package name is tab9. So this is a side note, not related to Node.js. It is AI-powered autocomplete. It basically analyzes your code and starts suggesting you better and better based on the style, how you write your code, what you're writing, how you build your functions, etc. Just to show you how crazy is I want to create a function, again, side note from the Node, but this is just very useful for you. If I want to create a function to sum up two numbers, for example, I'm creating const sum, parenthesis, for example, num1, num2, it's already suggesting me basically the function. And because I have the first function, and I want to create a function, for example, multiply, const multiply, just crazy. It understands what do you want to do. Just crazy. And the other day it was funny situation. One of our students, he tried to resolve one problem. He came to me with the question because his code didn't work, and I said, "Oh, you need to fix it in this way." And he said, "Oh, the autocomplete actually suggested me that, but I didn't." So this autocomplete is just crazy. Okay, yeah, so we have app application. Go back to Node. We have app application, and we want to instantiate our very first server. So listen, and as I said, port 3000, and we have console log. Listening on port 3000. Save. And let's run our this file again. As you can see, we have the server. Yeah, we don't have any endpoints for now. We just have a server. So we don't have a way how to access some data or how to access the server, but it is running. So now our goal is to create endpoints so we can reach server from different sides, basically to build routes to get to the server and get something in response. So again, why Express is so great, because to create a get endpoint, all you need to do is just app.get, and you have a get endpoint. So here, the first argument for your get method, because you specifying that should be a get method, the first argument for this function is the actually route, again, autocomplete. So this is your route that you want to use. So when you go now, if you go to localhost 3000 /, you will get here to that route. And I want to, so we have request. That means, so the second argument is callback, is the function. And the first argument, first parameter to this callback is request. So this is something that's coming from the front end to you. So you can send data from the front end, from the client side to your server, and that will be in your request. This is just a huge object, basically. And response is something that you can send to your client from the backend to the front end. And now, let's say that when I reach my get endpoint, the root, I want to have, I want to send, so response send, hello friend, right? So we are sending just a simple sentence, just a plain text to the front end. So now, if I go to localhost 3000 /, beautiful. Why it's happening? So this is a very common mistake. Because I just did some changes in my code, I need to stop my server and start it again. So it will pick up my changes. That is why.
Is there a way to use NodeMon in conjunction with the with VS Studio?
Yeah, exactly. So NodeDemon,
okay.
NodeMon or NodeDemon, I don't know how to pronounce it, but this is another NPM package that you can use. So it will basically, it's like a hot refresh. So if you change your file, it will reload that automatically. So I have it already. So if you don't have it on your laptop, you need to do npm install and NodeDemon, like this, and -G to install it globally on your laptop, so you can actually work with it everywhere. So then your NodeDemon will be global, and you can access to it from any folder. Because I already installed that, I just need to do NodeDemon and index.js. So now, if I do anything, I don't know, any change, console log, hi, save, you can see that it just rerun my server from the beginning. So you can reuse it. Yes. Save, great, let's try. And we have hello friend, right? We created the very first endpoint. Because of that, so when I hit the root folder on port 3000, I will send something to my front end. So now, when I reach this root, I'm getting that data. Or let's say we change this to greet. So if I refresh, again, I'm failing because there is no such thing as no such root for our server. But if I go to greet, I'm seeing my message again. So this is how you specifying the route to your server, the way you reach in the server. And again, for the very basic thing, it's just route. Yeah. Great. To create a post endpoint, you might already.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
So what was the difference between having the backslash and backslash create?
Yes. So again, let's show you again. So here we have just backslash, right?
Yes.
So now, if I go to 3000, localhost 3000 / without anything, hit enter. Ooh, sorry. I can see my message, right? So if I go to anywhere else, like, I don't know, greet, for example, I can't reach this endpoint because I don't have it here.
I see.
So if I create it, basically by just changing the route that I want to create. Now if I refresh this one, / greet, I have my message, but if I go to route one, it doesn't work.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So, as you might see that to create a get method, you just need app.get. You might guess that to create a post method and send some data to your server will be app.post, right? And let's say I will create an endpoint to-dos. And because this is a post method, you kind of expect something from your request. Right? So you need to, you will get something from the request. We can console log our request to see what do we have there, request. And if I go to my endpoint, now, so again, sorry, I might swipe in too much. But if I'm create an endpoint to-dos with post method, and I will reach this endpoint, so I will call that, basically I will go to that URL on my browser, I will trigger this function, the callback. So we will see, I don't know, let's start from kitten, right? So every time I go to this address, I will see in my terminal kitten. So let me just, sorry. I want to clear, start it again just to show you that we're listening. So if I go to the endpoint to-dos, now, because we just created, hit enter, it says that there is no get endpoint, which is correct because we created just post, and we are not triggering. But this is another tool. It's probably nice to create a front end for that to test it, but we can use Postman. Do you know the Postman app? So this is a free app to test your backend without building your front end. Sorry. So it is free app. So you can download for some. They have some enterprise and you can pay, but this is completely free for developers. So what you can do, you basically can create. You can fake the calls to your server. Let me just close all of that, and I'll show you how to do that. So this is a basic UI, and when you want to create a new call, you basically have the method that you want to simulate and your URL. So for us, it's HTTP localhost, but not users. We have to-dos, right? So let me check what do we have for. So we have root for hello friend. Let's see what do we get. So we have get method, root, and let's send this request. And we got a response, hello friend, right? So basically you don't need to create a front end to work with your backend. Because sometimes you're a backend developer and you have no clue how to write the front end. So you need to somehow to test your endpoints to see, can you actually send data to the front from the front end to the back end? Are you responding with the correct data, etc. So you don't need to create the front end for that. You just use the Postman and you can just hit your endpoints. So now, if we go back to the code, we have post method for to-dos, right? And we don't do anything, we're not responding with anything, but we can hit this endpoint, change the method to post, and we can click send. It will load because we're not responding to this query. It will load like without stopping, but we can see that we have our kitten console log that we try to, so that means that we actually hit this endpoint. So you can see, okay, so I'm actually hitting this endpoint and it is working. So let's handle the data. Let's say that I want to send, when I hit to-dos with posts, I want to set actually to-do from the front end. So if I create, I want to get from my request to-do. Yeah, to-do request dot body. So everything you're sending in the body, you will see why it is in the body. Request body to-do. Like this, just body. And let's console log this to-do here. We will struggle with one thing, but first of all, I want to explain why it's body. So whatever you send, if you want to send something, you go to body tab, and this is how you send in data. You send in a body of your request. So any request has two things. First is headers, where you're specifying the type of data you're sending, some extra parameters. And body is actually the object where you're sending the data, the actual data that you want to store in the database or send it to the backend. So here, I will say that I want to have raw and select JSON, because we send in JSON. So this is an object, and let's say I want to create a to-do. So ID 1 and text, survive. Did I spell it correctly? And wait a sec. Yeah, and another one is completed. False. Yeah.
So can I just make a comment at this point, please?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'm having a hard time seeing the screen, what you're typing. The color coding from the apps helps, but it's really small.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And it's not a problem. It's not a problem. I'm just letting you know.
Is it better?
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Sorry for that. Yeah, if you have any other suggestions, give me a shout. Is this one better now as well?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so we want to, when we hit the endpoint to-dos with post method, we want to send some data to the backend. We want to store something, maybe in a database, or just send, and that will trigger something, whatever you want to do. But in our case, we want to send a new to-do. So let me just put my code here. Now, I would expect that in my body, I will have my to-do. But if we will see that if I click send, it's infinite loop. It's just loading constantly because we don't respond with anything. But it is undefined. And this is because your body, basically you're getting a promise which is completely different subject from what we want to talk about today. That is why I'm just saying that I want to use my middleware to parse my data that I'm getting from the front end. And to do that is just express.json. So I'm saying take that body and convert it to the object. So let's try again. If I hit the endpoint, it's loading. I have my data from the front end, which is great. So what we can do is here, so we have our to-do, and now we can just respond with something. Let's say send, or maybe I don't know, we can send status. You might saw status, you might saw that on the internet, like 400 or 200 for success, and maybe some JSON. This is very simple. Again, the syntax is super simple. Message. New to-do is being created. So we get the data, yeah, and we have it on the back end, and we respond into the front end that, hey, that was successful, 200 is successful status code, and we send in some JSON to the front end, which is an object with message, new to-do has been created. We might also edit some status 200, something like that. Just more information. So now, if I hit the same endpoint again, I'm loading, and then I'm getting a response. Status 200, new to-do has been created. And on my backend, I have my user to-do. So let's combine actually our file system module with the data that we have here with Express. So we want to have our file system, and we want to create a file to store JSON, right? So we can just to simplify it for now, let me create like a database. We will call it database.json, and that will be just an empty array. Yeah, I think so. That should be enough. So yeah. Now, basically, every time I hit this endpoint, I want to read. I want to read my file, my old database. So I will do fs.read file sync, and I will set, I want to read my db.json, right? So I will get my db. Now I need to parse it. So theoretically, I can do something like db parse equals db JSON parse. We have, this is just a JavaScript method, parse, to parse the data, because we will get it as a string. So you want to get it and parse this data and have it as an object. And then, because we have a new to do, what we will do is just db parse. Again, we want to change it, so we want to have db parse, and that will be, let's console log what it is. Console log db parse, right? So if I try to hit this endpoint again, it is an array. We can see that this is an array, right? Because for us, this is empty array here in the file. But now, I want to take my array, so db parse dot push, and push my new to-do, right? So I will push it to my file, and then to my array. Then you might think that this is it, we've done. But no, we just modified parse. So now we want to do fs.write file sync. Again, specify which file we want to do. That should be /db.json. Then you want to have stringify autocomplete. JSON stringify, because this is an array for us, so we want to convert it back to string and store it back. Right? So let's try. So now, if I hit the endpoint, I will get my to-do, I will read the file, get this, make it, convert it to the array, push my new to-do to that array, then I want to store this new array with new value to the file back to the file, right? A few simple steps, but you need, this is actually, I found that many people, and not many, okay, like almost every single person struggling to develop this way of syncing. It's not something like, because we are like we are consumers, and for us, everything should be done automatically, and we are looking like, we're syncing in that way. But to be a developer, you need to develop that way of syncing when you need to do step by step. So if I want to send it to do and store it to the file, I need to get to do, get the file, parse the data, push the data, put it back to the file, to store, just to have a simple action, to store to do into my file. So let's try. So for now, it is empty array. If I hit my endpoint again with this, go to my JSON, I have it, right? Very, very simple. So let's try to do it again with ID2. And we have, I don't know.
Okay, so can I just ask a quick question, please?
Yeah.
Okay, so you just, I'm trying to, type along and make notes and watch at the same time. So you just reran Node on your index, and then that pulled in your database, and it populated your DB.json file. Is that right?
So the flow is that I've rerun my Node.js with new code, right? So it does nothing without trigger. But what is actually triggering the data storing is this call here when I'm sending my data from the front end, because basically this is your front end, this is a client side. You can create a index.html with JavaScript and have like a fetch method. Basically, you can send from your website, you can send this request, but because we don't have a website, we have this application. We use this application to mock these calls. And I'm sending this call to my server with this data. And this, because I'm hitting my endpoint to-dos with post method, it triggers, it looks for my to-dos endpoint, because we're hitting it. It looks for the method post, and because we both are matching, we do all of that. So it's been driven by our call from the front end, let's say. Does it make sense? Sorry?
Yes, I'm just unclear whether does it populate the JSON file after you click send in Postman, or do you need to, or maybe I'm just confusing myself because it looks like it looks like Postman is helping to refresh. You don't have to keep rerunning your index.js in your terminal.
Yeah, so sorry, this is because of Node daemon, but I'm not rerunning.
Right, okay.
So if I stop this one and run just in Node index, so I'm running my server, right? I have, let me remove this data from the file, save it. So I have no data, right? So now if I hit this endpoint to do with post, send, go to my JSON, I'm not rerunning this, the server. It's just storing.
Okay.
And if I hit this endpoint again with, I don't know, it, with some ID 1, send, I have 2.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Mika,
Yeah, NodeMon, I'm sorry. NodeMon is basically just when you're developing and you're making changes to the file. So every time you save, you don't have to go and kill the server and restart it.
Yeah, this is for file changes. Not. Yeah, sorry, Mika.
No, no worries. So this is sort of a simplified version of Postgres. Is that what we're using here? Because I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, the Postgres is a database. And it is like basically it has an API that you can communicate with the database. But yeah, you're right. So normally you working not with files, you're not storing data in like JSON file, you're storing data in database like Postgres or MySQL or MongoDB or any other. You're right. So, but to show an example how you can work with files, this is I would say the quickest way to show it, because we don't need to explain you what is Postgres, how it works, what is the API, what is the syntax, and many things. But yes, yeah. So this is alternative, the bad alternative, and people don't use in real life, almost, because a year ago, my friend, he got a new job. He joined the company, the big company. And they do marketing, like they are like influencers, the big marketing company, and the whole database were stored in the file, in the DB JSON, basically in a JSON file.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not great.
Yeah. So to explain everyone why it's not great is that every time, imagine that this file is not just one line with a few things, but it has like thousands or hundreds of thousands of records. And every time you want to change any tiny bit, like text, the value for this text, you need to parse the whole file, which can take like 10 megabytes, change these 2 characters, and store these 10 megabytes back. That is why it's a very bad idea to store your database in a file. That is why people using Postgres or MySQL or MongoDB, because you can query and put or get specific thing without getting whole database for you. Yeah, so yeah, that's not great. But I was surprised that the whole database was in the file. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's not super efficient. I'm gonna have to run back with the video and go over this, because there's a lot of gaps in my knowledge from my understanding of using everything pretty much. So I'm gonna run back the video to catch up with everything that you're doing. But that was just, I was like, oh wow, this is a nice alternative to Postgres. It looks a lot simpler and cleaner.
But not really nice. Yeah. Okay. So we can now. Let's do that. We can create a new to-do, which is great, but let's actually read these to-dos. So we want to create another endpoint, to-dos, and we want to basically read our file, right? We want to do the same thing here. We want to parse it. Again, we copy in our code, and then we just saying that response, so we want to send it back to our user JSON, which is our db.parse, right? Our variable, our database. So now, if I go to this one, let's create a new one to have both. HTTP, TTP, and we have to-dos, right? So now I'm hitting endpoint to-dos, but with get method. So we will reach this one, get and to-dos. So let's try. Woo. Right, we run in Node, sorry. We need to rerun again our Node, and that is why we use a Node daemon, because it will listen our index.js changes. Yeah, so now if I hit it again, I have all my to-dos, right? So I'm just getting my to-dos by hitting this endpoint. And this is because we are doing these simple actions here. And I can see that I'm repeating myself here basically twice, right? So I'm doing that once and I'm doing that second time. So I can outsource it to some function like get data. And that can be a function. And basically I will do these two things there and return, or I can do just return this. So now I don't need to write this. I will call my function and store it in DB. Now it's linear, and here I don't need to do the same. These two. That is DB. Yeah, I think this is it. So now it's linear. I don't need to repeat myself, and this is the whole point. When you write your code and you see that you're repeating something, you just create a function for that, a tiny function, and you will use it. Okay, yeah, sure, Anush. See you in the future. Yeah. So we have.
Okay, guys. Thanks a lot. Sorry.
Yeah. See ya. Bye. Yeah. So we have get now, right? So we can get all our to-dos, and we can create a new to-do. And let's create another endpoint for one to-do, where we will set get by ID. So again, that should be app.get, right? Get method. And here we will have to-dos. And here's the trick and the beauty of Express. What you're doing, you just have column, and let's say create a variable name basically that you want to use, and you will have like ID. I want to get by ID. It can be kitten, and you can pass. This is just a variable name. It can be kitten, and you can still pass an ID and select by ID. It's just a name, but obviously you want to be semantic, and if you pass an ID, you want to name it ID. So now, if I reach the endpoint, we can have let's console log console. I need to learn how to type request. So we want to console log request when we hit this endpoint with get. So let me just put, I don't know, 5 or 4, I don't know. Get 4 to-dos, yeah, great. Click, we have some errors. Right, again, let me run Node daemon, because I keep forgetting to refresh index.js. So let's try again. Now it's loading. And we have this tiny object with quite a few properties, right? But we have params. See that the one key in this object is params. And this is your ID. And that comes because you specify this. If I call it kitten, save, and hit this endpoint again, and let's scroll. We have kitten, right? So it's just a name of the variable that will be inside your params. And we have query, but we will talk about that in a sec as well. So let's say ID. So great, we have an ID. So const db get data, and we want to find this find to do by ID. So to do that, selected ID, selected to do, and we want to take our db.find. So first thing, actually, we want to have this ID, right? This one will be a string. As you can see, this is a string, but we want to look for a number because we're storing this as a number. So we want just to parse int. This is, we're just converting a string to a number. Again, just JavaScript. And we have, so we have ID now, and we want to find, I don't know, to do. Theoretically, it's better to call to-dos, right? Just be semantic. So to-dos, to do, and here we will have to do ID equals ID. So if we will find, we will have our to do. If we not, we will have undefined. So now we can build a logic around that. It's like if selected to do is true, see? So if it's actually the correct, so we found it. We want to respond with JSON and selected to do, right? So we are responding and probably status, response.status 200. Yeah, so it is successful and we send in the to do. Else, so if we couldn't find the one, we will send status is successful, but here we will send an object with message or maybe to do, let's say to do, or just empty object. Yeah, let's say just empty object. So if you don't have this to do with that ID, we want to send an empty object back. So let's try. So if I'm looking again, go back to our database, we have ID2 and ID1, right? If I try to get our to-do with ID4, we will get an empty object, right? But if we try to hit with ID2, we are getting the to-do with ID2. Yeah? Easy enough, I would say.
On the else statement, so the status, in that case, we'll be able to use like the 404 in case like, we can't find anything?
Yeah, why
or
not? Easy, I don't mind. Yeah, you can use 404. So now if you go here, again, 5, you get 404
so okay.
not found, and the empty object. Or you can send just not empty object, but just null.
Cool.
Yeah, so send again, null. Yep. Yeah, so another thing, we are able to get all to-dos, get one to-do, create new to-do. Let's remove one to-do. So app.delete, delete. So we have to-dos. And again, we want to delete by ID, by some specific selected request, some selected to-do, right? So, okay, same flow. So first, we want to get to-dos. So now we have to-dos. Now we want to filter our to-dos. Yeah, I'm just thinking a few ways how we can approach it, but we can filter new to-dos. Theoretically, because what I'm saying, we can filter that and store the filter data. Even if it doesn't exist, it will put the same data back. But that means that we still need to filter all of that. And I'm just thinking, do we want to, we can filter and store, or we can try to find, and if we couldn't find it, we can send a response that it doesn't exist already, or if we find it, we can remove it and tailor the message that like the to-do has been deleted. So maybe we can, let's do that. So that will be more informative. Again, this is just a different approaches. So we have to-dos, dot find, and I will look find index because I want to remove then that. So I'm doing find index to-do. Where's to-do? Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to parse my to-do. This one, right? So we need to get ID from the request. And we have just our ID. So we have, this is not new to do, selected to do index, something like that. So we have selected to do index. And if this index is -1, because this is how it works, so I will show you an example. Again, just JavaScript. So if I have an array, like 2, 3, I don't know, 1 dot find index, where's the item equals 10, we have -1 because it's not in our array. But if you look for something like 2, the index is 0 because it's on the first position. Yeah, so that is why here in my if, basically I will have selected to do index equals, or not equal, not equal to -1. That means that we found it, right? We want to do, and that should be let, because we want to modify our to-dos. So if we found it, so it exists, we want to do to-dos dot splice, and so that means that I want to remove one to-do, and I'm selecting the index where it starts and say remove one item. So that means that basically I'm removing this to-do from the list. And then I just want to store my data back to my database. So I will have my to-dos, and I'm storing my to-dos, right? And then I will respond status 200. One more thing, your status is not required. If you don't want to pass it, you can just do JSON message to-do has been deleted, something like that. But I can put it there, and we have status 200. Else, we can have response dot status 404, because it's not found, dot JSON, and maybe let's have JSON message to do not found, something like that. So now if you try, so let's try it again. Basically we have 2 and 1. So if I try to delete method with to do 5, so I'm passing 5 ID, hit send, to do not found, because we don't have such to do. But if I put 2, which we have, this one, shopping, sent, to do has been deleted. And now in my file, I don't have it. Yep. So this is delete. And looks like we can do CRUD now. Looks like we can create, delete, remove. So create, read, update, update. We forgot about update. Yeah, okay, the last one, and we are done. So to patch, basically, again, you do the same. So we can do, is it put? It might be put. And we have to-dos, again, ID. Don't forget about column when you want to use it as a param, because if I miss it, that means that I try to reach the endpoint to-dos /ID. But if I want to have it as a param, I need to have this column. Forgot about this. So yeah, first thing, basically it's very similar to our delete, because we want to get ID, we want to get data to all to-dos, we want to find the position of this to-do, then we want to modify it. So then that means that we take our to-dos, square brackets, again, yeah, we want to have if-else as well. So if it's not equal, then we want to have, we want to select this to-do, and we want to store some data, right? And we potentially want to pass it through body. So theoretically, const updated to-do equals request dot body. Yeah. So we have basically the to-do that I want to, the new data for the to-do, right? Or maybe changes. Let's call it to-do. It's always the challenge to find a better name for the variable. Change. Yeah. So what we will do, this is a JavaScript syntax. So I will take this alt to-do, I will spread it so I have all data, because I might change just shipping, just a complete status or text status, or just text. So I want to spread everything, and then I want to spread the new values. So I might extend it, or I might override something. I feel like I can lose you here on this point. So if you have any questions, you can ask. Yeah. Okay, so we have new to-dos. Yeah,
this is a little confusing here. I don't know so much if I have a question. I am just a little confused though.
Yeah, so basically we have all to-do. We are selecting the to-do from our database. We found it and we are happy that we have it. Then I want to, because in my to-do, I will copy it from here. Let me just go to the very end and show it to you. To-do. So this is what I have. This is my to-do. If I want to, for example, if I want to add something to this to-do, I want to take the old to-do. For example, I don't know what is inside. We have a few ways to do that, but let's say I don't know what is inside. I will do to-do equal, so I'm replacing my to-do with everything that I have before. And for example, I will put text, new text. So that means this one will bring me everything. And you might say, okay, so we already have text. But the thing is that if you have already text, this one will overwrite it because it goes after. So you put your alt on the beginning, and then you add in whatever you want. But if I add something like age, I don't know, 30, something silly, that means that I will extend it with a new property and overwrite it the alt text value. Or for example, if I have user, I have name, Alex, and maybe age, and maybe text, right? Text, and random text, random text. That means that I can spread it here. So now I will have ID, I will have alt text, which will be overwritten by new text because it goes after. I will have completed, and I will have name. So basically the new object, let's call it new object. And the new object will be something like, let's copy this. That will be random text, and we will have name. Yep. So that will be our new object, the result of that merge. Does it make sense now?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, great.
So
Yeah.
That's part of JavaScript, or is it in one of the packages that
No,
you
this is
installed
pure
before?
JavaScript. This is ES6. This is JavaScript. We call it destructuring. So you're destructuring the object into small pieces. Basically, you like taking the box with different stuff and like throwing onto the table.
Yeah. So every time we do this, we pretty much overriding everything.
Yeah.
And doing whatever changes that we do in the process.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there a way that, let's say if I just want to go exactly to just, one of the attributes,
Yeah.
I just want to change text, without touching anything else. Is there a way for that?
Yeah, sure. That means that when you send in your data, where do we have our post, put, right? We can put another parameter like, I don't know, key, right? And now you need to pass ID and the name, for example, or the, I don't know, completed. And then you will just select this specific thing and modify it. Yes, you can do that.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But we are like very flexible with that because we can modify everything on one time. And we just do this, we spreading the object that we just sent and storing this into our to-dos. And sending has been updated.
So I'm trying to remember, I used a library, I forgot the name of it, where you will find the to-do that you want to modify, and then you will add something like where, and then you will have like the key, the ID, the text, the name, and you will only update that.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to remember it right now, but yeah, it was a library. It kind of like help you doing queries and changes on a database.
Yeah, so when you're working with database, it always depends what kind of database you have, etc. But you will not do this file storing, and you can be picky and select particular things to change.
Okay.
So for example, for MySQL, you can actually build the query. So find the for example, select user by ID where ID equals 35, and name where and set name to something. So basically, very specific.
Yeah, it's my first time that I see that dot and the FS module too. So it's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. So
My first time seeing that also. I'd never seen it written like that. ES6 is just going to take a little bit of getting used to, I think.
yeah,
Yep.
that's true. Especially all these methods for arrays, like map, filter, reduce, etc. It's always tricky. Okay, so let's create a few more to-dos. I don't know, read, send, for Spain. Yeah, so I think we have a few. Yeah, okay, so we have 3, 4, yeah, okay. So let's select the fourth one. Let's create a new endpoint. Select put HTTP to-dos, and let's select non-existing one, 7, right? And we want to send a new value, JSON. So we want to send text. For example, I just want to modify text of non-existing one, and new text. So when I click this, I'm getting to do not found, right? Because we have our else. But if we select, for example, which one do we have? Third, and we have read. Yep, see ya. Okay, so we have search, so to do, we search, read, and we want to have text, new text, or maybe we want to name it, I don't know, play football. And if I send, to do has been updated. So now if I go to my database, oh, sorry, don't save. Sorry, I forgot because I made some changes. I have my play football, right? So you update it. But because of me destructuring that, we can just do age, some silly one, and I don't know, 30, and maybe add some name Alex. And if I send it, successfully updated, and you can see that I've just added a few more things to this to do, right? So I can extend it. Yeah. So now in this way, basically we've done everything without any validation. But you want to write to check, for example, when you create in to-do, you have some schema, and you probably want to check, does this to-do have, for example, text and completed status? If so, then create it. If not, response with one message, like that should match the schema of this. Or maybe you want to say you need to read documentation to pass the right object or whatever. So we can do validations, and we can be more sophisticated for all of these endpoints. But this is like a basic things how you can create your endpoint and actually start working with data and storing your data and working with your database. And yeah, basically you can use your db.json as a database. But this is I would say, a very good starting point for you to practice it, to practice your Node.js and start building things. Okay, so yeah, this is what we.
Sorry, what was? Sorry, quick question. What was the last thing you said? The starting to track your data. I didn't catch it. I couldn't hear it.
So you can start working with your database and with your server, and basically practice your backend skills, your Node.js.
Right. Okay. Right. So so this is a way to get comfortable using Patch or with Postman, and it's a way to get comfortable with building the code, learning the code. But ultimately, you want to be able to interact with the database, correct?
Yeah, exactly. But this is a big part, I would say, because like the backend is all about creating, reading, updating, and deleting data in different ways, with different validations, with different combinations, but still it's just 4 things. There is nothing else, because it's just data. And that is why we're covering such things, so you can actually basically build your APIs and try by yourself. You can try to add some validation, you can try to get some matches, etc. But this is the starting point for you to practice that.
Right. And then, so then would we incorporate SQL into it in order to interact, to update and read and everything for the database?
Yeah, so I would suggest you, so for example, for SQL, you need to install MySQL first on your laptop, which is, their website is just crazy. To find how to install, it is a pain. They have a lot of documentation with links from one to another, but it is a challenge to find the package. But you need to install it first on your laptop, and then I would suggest you to simplify your life. If you're not very familiar with the MySQL language, because this is a separate language, use Sequelize.
That's the one I was trying to remember.
Yeah. So Sequelize is basically
Sequelize.
An API, an adapter, the middleware between different database types, like MySQL, MongoDB, like different varied Postgres, etc. But when you use Sequelize, and you have, for example, MySQL, you have MySQL, Node.js, and Sequelize as an adapter. So you built all infrastructure, all logic with Sequelize, and one day suddenly you decided to move from MySQL to Postgres. This is not a problem, because Sequelize has own API and you are working with it. So you don't need to rebuild the whole architecture, you just connect the different database, and that will work in the same way. So Sequelize is just an extra on the middleware that will sit on top of your database and will have like a common way to communicate with your database, with any database that you have, any type of
So
database.
it's like agnostic. It goes. Oh wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Okay.
powerful too. I was able to use MongoDB and MySQL with it. It's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Question?
yeah.
Yeah. Is Sequelize anything like Mongoose?
Yeah, exactly. So non-relational database as well. So you can read their docs, and they covering pretty much everything you want. So definitely you can use Postgres. So Mongoose is actually, I would say Mongoose is more about how you structuring the data and build basically requirements and models for your data. So Mongoose is not really Sequelize. Mongoose is, so basically if you have a MongoDB, this is an object. So you can store different data as an object. But with Mongoose, you can create like a requirements. So if you want to store a user, that should have 5 fields: first name, last name, email, password, and this field should be required, and this one should have matched this pattern, etc. So this is another way of processing your data. But Sequelize is just an adapter to use different databases without thinking what kind of data you have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mongoose, we can probably consider it like an extension of Mongo. It's how I say it.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay.
Okay. So I think. Do you have any questions, by the way?
I have one.
Yep.
You put all the routes in the same file as the server. That can be good practice.
Definitely. But this is the point is for this lesson is just to show you the syntax and how it works. But normally you're delegating even the functions like that. You want to delegate to different functions and like create a helper.js, for example, or API.js, where you will just build this and separate all your code in different places so you can actually work with them separately. And the same with routes. You want to have different routes in different and you split in them, because today we built very simple application, but you like big companies serving huge applications with hundreds or even thousands endpoints, and you need to architect all of that infrastructure and create and separate all of them. So yeah, definitely one file is not the answer for commercial fields, but yeah, today we are talking about syntax and how to start working with language. Yep. Anything else? Any other questions?
Well, it's definitely gotten me excited, I have to say.
That's good.
Yeah. It looks fun. It looks like a lot of fun.
It is indeed. Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of practicing and reviewing for sure.
I bet that you will have a lot of frustration with it as well. But this is the how it works.
Yeah, coding kind of makes you just like question your life and like, oh my god, why did I do this? And then it's successful and you're like, all right, that felt nice. And then you go back to crying again.
So one thing that I struggle a lot with, and I would love to maybe we have a meetup based on that, is promises and callbacks.
Yeah,
it's like that's killing me. That's destroying me. It's like I'm talking about it. I want to cry. That's how bad it is.
And to be honest, I found that when I started with promises a few years ago, I had the same feelings. Like literally, I saw them like, what's going on? Like, why is happening? And like, why? But now, it looks very easy for me, and I think that because now I understand and I learned that. But on that point of time, I didn't have anyone who can actually sit with me 5 minutes and explain the basic syntax, because there is nothing complicated. It's just few tiny rules. And this is it. But
I'd like to get to that point. That would be nice.
Yeah.
So even like when you're doing like the get request on with Express, so we're looking at callbacks in there. It's that's what we're going through. But when I try to create my own callbacks and I repeat, it's chaos. Like I don't even know where to begin with. So.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And yeah, so like from my side, again, I suggest you to join our Slack, and you can watch the whole our bootcamp that we have on YouTube, all lessons from very first one to very last one. We have, let me count, 8. So 8 lessons per module, 40 lessons, each lesson 2 hours. So this is full stack bootcamp that we have and that we are running. So we're starting from very basic syntax, like with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, moving to more advanced JavaScript, doing more JavaScript. Then we're doing Node.js module, which has 8 lessons with serverless, with WebSockets, etc. And the last module, 8 lessons we have for React. And again, everything is available on our YouTube channel, so you can feel free to watch. If you can do all exercises from there, you can do build projects, and in our Slack you can ask for help if you working on something, or even if you work on something separately on some other stuff.
Yeah,
I'm always there and happy to help. I will share the link to our slides for today, and if you want, I will share the code as well. And yeah.
Yes, please. I was going to ask if you could screenshot us the code just to, because I always have a million syntax errors, and it'll be something like you're sitting there, why won't it work? A semicolon, then you're ready to throw your computer against the wall because you've got all this stuff and you messed up because it was a semicolon, or you forgot to close a squiggly bracket. It's like, oh, come on. Yeah, please. That would be helpful.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, so sure. I will share that with you as well, and yeah, we will organize, as I said, we will organize some events to cover like basic JavaScript and potentially asynchronous, etc. So we can talk about that a bit more, and we can learn more stuff. Thank you.
Do you have any like example projects that we can, like small projects we can work on? We can use what we learned today to like work on?
I would say to build an actual front end and a back end for to-do list, like a full stack to-do list, is quite an exercise. And do with all validations, not just as simple as we did today, but actually validations and to store your data and handle all errors that potentially can be. And you can go even further with to-do. Why to-do list is so popular? Because you can go crazy with to-do list. You can start with just a simple stuff that we did to add completed status, or you can add some extra lines or extra fields for your to-do list, or set deadlines, or you can store it into actual database, not just JSON file. So you can connect a database to that, like MySQL or Mongo or whatever. So it can take you a year to build a to-do list. And you can see that we have quite a few companies that's providing you to-do lists. It's like an application for them. And they have a team of developers. They are working years and years to support it. So that is why to-do list is a very good exercise, and you can go very far with it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problems. Okay, thank you for your time today. I know this Saturday morning is the best time to learn. Why not, right?
That's perfect. Yeah.
Who's sleeping?
Except for me.
Yeah, who's sleeping till noon on Saturday, right? We're starting early.
We start early. So how long does it take for the video to get on YouTube?
About 2 hours, I think. I need to upload it.
Okay.
Yeah, it will be quickly, and I'll send you via Meetup, because I don't have your email, so I'm just sending you via Meetup the link to the slides, to the you can join on. By the way, give me a second. So on your side. So in our chat here, I'm just sending a link to our YouTube channel. And if you go to playlists, you'll see that we have a playlist for JavaScript. And we have playlists for, you can find playlists like London, PTFS, and some numbers. These are cohorts that we have in London in bootcamp. So this is all videos regarding the bootcamp. So you can just watch all of them if you want. And yeah, I'll upload it to the to this channel in 2 hours, this video as well.
Great, thank you.
It was a pleasure, guys.
Thank you, and speak to you soon.
Thanks so much. See you guys next time.
See ya. Bye.
Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.